I said this meeting is being recorded, and we will be ready to, it will be available online later on. So please update your name on Zoom to your preferred name and your pronouns. You can do that by clicking on the little 3 dots on top of your screen, on top of your little icon. Next slide, please. When you come in, your microphones are turned off to start. In order to speak, you will need to unmute. If you're joining us via phone, you can press *6 to unmute. And you can also, throughout the meeting, use nonverbal feedback options, or raise your hand or leave us a message in the chat box with any questions you have throughout the meeting, and we will address them towards the end. And if you've called into this meeting, in order to raise your hand, please use *9. So thank you once again for joining us. My name is Daniela Sanchez Zamora. I did not say that before. I work with the active transportation team in the transportation department, and I am supporting the efforts of engagement for this project. And your project manager, who you might be familiar with if you've been coming to meetings or you've been out on the streets, is Jeff Alexis, who's not with us today because he's on medical leave. But with us, we have Zach, who is a colleague of Jeff and will be working on this presentation. And we also have Mike Donaghy from the Street Lighting Division of Public Works Department. So today we will be talking about, we'll learn more about the work that the street lighting team does, learn how is their day-to-day, and then learn a little bit more about the goals of street lighting for the city of Boston and things we have been working on. And then we'll do the goals of the reconstruction of Cummins Highway and the opportunities that this presents in terms of reconstruction. We'll also be talking about the opportunities for street lighting improvements because of the reconstruction. And then we'll recap what we've done so far, how these meetings have been going, and how sort of we have been applying the things that you've been hearing from you, and discuss next steps. And then I will pass it on to Zach.
Hello, everyone. As Daniela said, I apologize that Jeff can't be with us tonight, so I'll do my best to fill in on Jeff's behalf. Just to provide a quick refresher on where we are on Cummins Highway right now. Currently, we have implemented a temporary pilot. This is not the final design, but this has been implemented in order to enhance safety and to slow driver speeds. You can visit our website at the link right on the here, boston.gov/Cummins-Highway for more information on safety data and some of the comments, all of the comments that you have provided to date. We have them posted on there. So in the next slide, I'm going to go over some of the project history or the history of Cummins Highway. Cummins Highway hasn't been updated since 1955. That's a long time. Back in 1953, the streetcars were removed, and that provided more room for cars, which was reflective of the priorities of the 50s, which was to enable folks to drive through the neighborhood more quickly. And the next slide, we're going to talk about what we're looking at for Cummins Highway as we move into the future. What are we looking at for reconstruction? So for a reconstruction project, it's a full reboot of the street. We're completely rebuilding everything, including sidewalks, curbs, street lights, what we're here to talk about tonight, traffic signals, the road pavement, and we'll update any utilities as necessary. As I'm sure you're all aware, even right now, as we're implementing the pilot, National Grid is out on the street updating their infrastructure as an initial step. So we want to make sure that all the infrastructure gets upgraded and we have a whole chance to look at how the street is and how it functions today. We've budgeted approximately $12 million right now in the city budget for the reconstruction of Cummins Highway. And so on the next slide, we're going to take a look at how we're interacting to develop the design. As you know, we can't produce a design without your input. As you can see, it was 1955 when the last major upgrade to Cummins Highway took place. So this is our chance right now to take a look at Cummins Highway and figure out what it should be for the next 70 or so years. We're still working through community engagement on the design, like this meeting. And we have not begun the actual design work. We're still talking out issues like tonight when we're going to talk about street lighting. The pictures below show some of the events that we had with our pre-COVID in-person meetings, and then some of our pop-up events where you can see Jeff and I there talking to some folks about the design and getting feedback. So in next slide, we're going to jump into some of the overarching goals. So one of the things that we're looking toward for this project is Go Boston 2030. Go Boston 2030, what's that? That's Boston's transportation master plan heading into 2030. And the highlights of that are, of course, improving safety, reducing emissions, and equity and access to opportunities. Cummins Highway is certainly part of the Go Boston 2030 effort. So advancing those Go Boston 2030 goals, one of the key things that we're doing is we're partnering with other city departments and communicating with them. These include, but are not limited to, the BPDA, Boston Transportation Department, Neighborhood Services, Disabilities Commission, all these departments to help us inform residents of the work and also to improve our collaboration in the neighborhood and achieve the goals of Go Boston 2030. And also as part of that is continued collaboration with residents to advance your goals. We want to have awareness and participation in efforts that you care about and confirm your vision for the future of the projects. This means continued outreach like the meeting tonight to discuss key components like the street lighting and so you can really help us to inform that project vision. So now I'll hand over to Mike Donaghy from our street lighting division. We'll talk more specifically about the topic of the night, which is street lighting.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks to everyone for attending. It's my pleasure to be able to showcase our street lighting team. I'm going to talk to you really on three fronts. I'm going to start by giving you an overview of street lighting so you have some greater context for our operation and our overall purpose. Then going to jump into what would probably be the most important part of the presentation, which is street lighting on Cummins Highway as part of the reconstruction effort. And then finally, I think for additional context and looking towards the future, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of street lighting and some applications that we think may potentially overlay very well with street lighting infrastructure. Next slide, please. So as the title of our department clearly states, we are responsible for the ownership, operation, maintenance, and replacement of a majority of the street lighting throughout the city of Boston. This is with the exception of properties managed by DCR, MassDOT, and MBTA. A little known fact is that we also string and illuminate over 50 different Christmas trees during the holiday season. We're very excited to potentially have that back, God willing, with COVID protocols in place to be able to celebrate with the communities throughout the city of Boston. So I'll get a little plug in there, and I hope everyone can make it out to celebrate this holiday season. We do have a quiz. We're going to start you off early, keeping you guys on point. As you see the quiz that just popped up there, I would like to ask you to take a guess at how many streetlights the city of Boston is responsible for maintaining. We'll give it some time for answers, and we'll go from there. Looks like we may have most of our responses in. It's a pretty even race. But for those folks who answered 63,000, you are correct. Oh, did I just go in the wrong direction? Yes, you are correct. 68,000 streetlights across the city. That actually includes 2,800 gas lights that, believe it or not, are sprinkled throughout the city. They're predominantly in Charlestown, Beacon Hill, and the Back Bay, but I can assure you, lurking around corners and down alleyways, there are gas lights that I encourage you to go and look in your community and find. We maintain all those gas lights and partner with National Grid to keep those lights running, and Eversource to keep the remaining lights running throughout the city. Next slide, please. Excuse me 1 second. I'm closing the poll on my screen. Our operations are based just down the road from the scope of this project on Canterbury Lane off Morton Street. That's where our warehouse is. So all of our rolling stock, our bucket trucks, our cranes, and that's where we conduct our daily operations. We do have administrative and engineering functions down at Frontage Road, where I'm at right now. Our staff is 35 employees strong, and we're looking to grow further. And we work 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, and we have an emergency on-call crew that addresses emergencies over the weekend. Next slide, please. We maintain and repair 19 different fixture types throughout the city. I'd like to tell this group I'd like that number to decrease as soon as possible. I'm a strong believer in streamlining inventory to maximize our maintenance schedules and shorten our times to repair. And that's one of the long-term initiatives we have is streamlining the lighting without sacrificing any of the aesthetics that we have in the city. Our most common street lighting types are the Pendant, the Arietta, the Cobra Head, and the Acorn. You'll find the Cobra Head and the Arietta prevalent on Cummins Highway now, especially the Cobra Head, which is the double arm fixture in the median of the Cummins Highway roadway. The Pendant and the Acorn are sort of in a different classification we refer to as our decorative pole types. Those are our most popular and are prevalent throughout all areas of the city. The Pendant fixture in particular is pertinent to tonight's presentation because it is the primary fixture and to give credit to this project, the prime opportunity to really revitalize lighting in this area. The Pendant is a beautiful fixture that can be found on Center Street in West Roxbury, Hyde Park Ave, American Legion Highway, Huntington Ave, Beacon Street, Com Ave, out by BU, and other parts of the city. It's an extremely popular fixture, both because of its aesthetics, but its performance on the roadway. And as you can see in the last bullet, it really is our main goal to look at all major corridors and upgrade them to decorative lighting. It's the general idea that you're entering some part of the city through these main corridors. And from a street lighting perspective, obviously we're biased, but we think what better way to do that than with decorative lighting. Next slide, please. So to give a little bit more background, starting in the fall of 2010, the city embarked on an aggressive campaign to upgrade all inefficient street lighting to LED. This was upgrading fixtures such as high pressure sodium, metal halide, and mercury vapor. In a very short amount of time, in partnering with Eversource, the city achieved a substantial completion rate that has brought us to the point we're at today. So this brings us to our next quiz. In the 10 or 11 years since we've started the LED program, how many lights or what percentage of our lighting portfolio has been converted to LED? Keep in mind, we're at 68,000 lights that we manage. And we'll wait for your responses. In the interest of time, I can let the audience know that we've completed upgrade of over 55,000 lights, which equates to 80% of our overall lighting portfolio. We continue to upgrade, and we're actually looking forward to continued partnership with Eversource to see that every last light within the city of Boston is LED. We have an opportunity through the environmental department who's pursuing a performance contract that is currently out for bid that will minimize, if not eradicate, our upfront capital costs to upgrading those lights. And so we're very excited about that. And we hope to have that done within the next 5 years. We could go to next slide if you want, Daniela. Want to cover a little bit of the merits of LED lighting. In short, LED lighting is a no-brainer. It provides so many tangible benefits, it's hard to get it into one succinct message. First of all, the lamp life is exponentially higher on a magnitude of 5 to 1. Any of the more aged technologies, such as high pressure sodium, have a lamp life of approximately 20 to 25,000 hours. Any LED fixture can easily achieve 100,000 hours of lamp life. And we've seen this proven true, because if you burned a LED light at or 24 hours a day, you would get approximately 11 years out of that fixture before it burned out. That would not be the case with some of the older technology. You're looking at 18 months to 36 months. The color temperature is something that is an advantage with the LED lighting as well. I would also caution, especially based on a note that came in earlier, everything is a balance. So bright white light is a really good thing in one conversation, and then too much bright white light is a bad thing in another conversation. So my focus here, or my message here, is that having the brighter light allows us the ability to create a safer, more secure environment for pedestrians, vehicular traffic, and bicyclists, and constituents overall. The inherent nature of the diodes for the light allow us an ability to direct lighting in a way we haven't before. And that's also done through shading and general lighting design. And that allows us to focus more on illumination of the important parts of the roadway and ambient light to the sidewalk without being too intrusive on someone's home and having light shine right through the window. That can be quite irritating. It allows for fewer dark spots on the street, and it allows us to limit upward lighting, which helps us work towards dark skies compliance. With all that said, we can then throw on top of it the substantially lower consumption of the LED light compared to its predecessors. We're able to reduce carbon emissions by upwards of 60%, and we're able to save money, as I'm sure you're very familiar with, by using the lower wattage. Next slide, please. There's another emerging area that we manage that is small cells. And what this effectively is an FCC mandate to install telecommunications equipment on streetlight poles to improve network connectivity throughout any given area. Certainly for our own interests, it's the city of Boston. The City of Boston Street Lighting Division is tasked with managing these telecommunications companies so that they conduct their operations from design through the construction phase, through operations, continued operations and maintenance, that they continue these operations in a way that maintains or improves the quality of life for the constituents that it interfaces with. The benefit to the constituent is improved connectivity, but there are abilities to improve lines of communication for emergency response purposes, and prevents networks from getting proverbially jammed in the event of a catastrophe. I hate to put it in those terms, but that's exactly why the mandate is in place. Next slide. So this is what we've all been waiting for. And before we jump to a next slide, I'd love to just focus in on a few things. And I hope I'm not hitting on too many pains that anyone on the presentation has experienced. But what I see here is a locational issue with a streetlight in the middle of a roadway, a very busy roadway. It's ripe for getting hit, and it happens quite often, as I'm sure you know. I see overhead wire going in 3 different directions, which is something that I will explain in a little bit. It's a necessary evil to get the light lit, but it looks terrible, and it's inefficient from a logistical perspective. And back to the location, this light these lights should be two different lights on the sidewalk. That allows a level of accessibility for our maintenance crews so that we can actually access the wiring underground and create splices that is very difficult to access at this point. And then what we can't see in this picture, but what is absolutely true, is the light quality, whether it's shining into the houses below or just lighting the middle of the roadway. It is markedly insufficient for what today's standards call for. So why don't we jump to the next slide, please? I may have covered a lot of this, but I thought that picture was extremely poignant. And so I'll just hit it again. You see the overhead wire. The reason you see so much overhead wire, which by my count on a recent survey was 23 spans from Harvard Street down to River. The reason you see this is because it's the most expeditious way to restore power to the light. Excuse me. You may ask, well, what happened in the first place? Many times there's either been a knockdown or something has been compromised underground. With the myriad of excavation activities that occur in the city, it happens all the time, quite honestly. And so our best measure, both in terms of getting the light back to you, the constituent, and the ease of creating the repair, is overhead wire. I can tell you that Chief Osgood himself wants every overhead wire in the city eradicated. And a project like this puts us, I have a hard time completing the sentence because of my excitement, but it gives us an opportunity that's unheralded to be able to eradicate all of this overhead wire that is so unsightly. And sorry, I kind of went off track there, so I'm trying to recalibrate with my with the bullets. And another thing about the quality of the light, with it being in the middle, again, we're going to do quite a bit of before and after surveying, certainly the before part of the light qualities, taking our foot candle measurements and matching that up with the specifications. But these lights I can see are already tilted a little bit upward, and that's what happens. Even, believe it or not, the vibration of all the vehicular traffic changes the composition of the street light pole, not from a structural standpoint, but just the direction of it. And so over time, the rattling can honestly change the direction of the light. So having this off the middle of the roadway is another tangible benefit that we'll be able to achieve. Next slide, please. So I'm going to do a little guesstimating here. I would have to look through our historical records, but tying back to the slide that Zach spoke about regarding the removal of the trolleys and the focus on getting roadway traffic into the city, it's my general belief that they were able to utilize part of this wide roadway to put lighting in. However, it was abundantly flawed, at least by today's standards. I'm sure it worked in those days, but we're not in those days anymore, and we're looking for more comprehensive modern solutions. Another aspect of this that's been a challenge for street lighting is a purchase and sale that occurred with Eversource, where we purchased 23,000 lights in 2002. They were in various states of decay in some cases, but in different states. And over time, because of limited budgets, we've had to replace on an ad hoc basis. So again, I can't stress enough the importance of this project to providing best-in-class street lighting solutions for the constituents in this area. And in many cases, these lights are over 50 years old. We do monitor them for stress cracks and highly encourage you in the short term for any issues that you see to please use 311. We are right down the street and we respond as expeditiously as possible. So your eyes on site are just as good as ours, and we welcome any and all feedback that you have for us. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Mike, before we continue, I see that there's a lot of chatter in the chat happening.
Sure.
I encourage everyone to please listen. This is a unique opportunity in which we have the street lighting division here in order to talk about street lights, which is a topic which is often we don't get to learn a lot about. And as I'm saying this, I think what we are trying to focus on is trying to get to see the opportunities that are available within reconstruction, which is happening because Again, Cummins hasn't been updated since 1955, and the structure and infrastructure that's there is literally crumbling. So there is going to be a change happening, and this is an opportunity. So it would be great if everyone can pay attention. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Daniela. So our general goals for this project and for projects around the city is to provide adequate, right-sized lighting, improve safety and security, make sure that crosswalks are appropriately lit, that constituents feel safe, and that ultimately the benefit is multifold. Excuse me, I should talk a little slower to the area. In terms of the spacing of the existing lighting, they're upwards of 100 to 150 feet in between one another. A pendant lighting pole, like you see to the right in this picture, is slated for 75 to 90 feet apart on both sides of the street. We think that this it not only meets the criteria for roadway lighting standards, it will provide a tremendous amount of illumination that shouldn't be too much. I think the fact that we're meeting here today and presentation to you is a conversation that started early. So we're looking to partner with you on these lighting solutions. So you shouldn't worry necessarily about overlighting. It's about bringing the lighting that is there up to the standards throughout the city of Boston that exist. An example here, as you see the note below, is Naponset Avenue. We started this project last weekend. It's going to be upwards of 100 poles, and we are about 10% of the way through. And that's an example of the Arietta that I spoke of, one of our more versatile fixtures. And the pendant fixture is now in its place, which provides a little bit greater illumination going out to the middle of the roadway. And it's, as you can see, a more decorative and more aesthetically pleasing pole type. Next slide, please. One of the primary initiatives for any new lighting installation that we're very cognizant of is making sure that we're not contributing to light pollution. Our goal is to improve the quality of life for everyone and everything involved. And so we take very seriously any type of criteria and the specifications of the street lighting that we install. A majority of our street lighting is focused on down lighting, which helps mitigate any dark skies, or I shouldn't say mitigate dark skies, but mitigates any light pollution and helps us work towards dark skies compliance. Next slide, please. And I think this has become very clear, but since it's in bold, and I'd love to say it as many times as possible, I'm very excited that this project will entail installing a brand new street lighting system. That means infrastructure, underground, conduit, pole bases, cabinet bases, pole box bases, and certainly new lighting. This will be brand new and in great shape for decades upon decades to come. What I personally really enjoy and appreciate about these lights is the scalability. We're going to be able to improve the distance compared to what the lighting is there now. And the lighting itself, while it is designed as a roadway lighting, and we are technically the street lighting division, as the world changes in terms of urban planning, we actually are now moving towards sidewalk lighting and trying to do what we can to expand our own horizons as it relates to roadway and sidewalk lighting. That small light that you see mid-pole is prevalent in Nubian Square and helps to light what appears to be a bike path, but also provides benefits to sidewalk lighting and pedestrians passing by. You can see an example of that in Nubian Square, and an older example of that is in Upham's Corner. Next slide, please. Some of the current and recent projects that we have, I mentioned Naponset Avenue. We saw the picture of the before and after. It's all of our internal street lighting team. They do a fantastic job and take great pride in their work. And we've embarked on Naponset Avenue, which has been a nice start. Up in Charlestown, there's a small section called the Lost Village. And we upgraded all the neighborhood lights. This particular light has a little brother of a light or little sister that's smaller. It's about 4 feet smaller, the arm shorter, and the fixture is smaller. That's designed for neighborhood lighting. And that's prevalent, believe it or not, in the Symphony Road area off of Huntington Ave. And as I mentioned, Nubian Square has had a brand new system installed, and Ruggles Street is coming soon. So we're very excited about the implementation of this lighting solution across the city. Next slide, please. So to close things out, I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of street lighting. Before we go to the next slide, if you could take a step back for a second and think about street lighting, one of the inherent characteristics that provides an opportunity is that at least in the case of the future lighting at Cummins Highway, there'll be a structure every 75 to 90 feet with a constant power source. This allows us an opportunity to take a look at different applications, which if you could jump to the next slide, I'll jump right into that. The opportunities for this abound. You can look at digital street signage. You can install banners and interactive banners, digital signage that may tie into community events. You can have facade lighting and ambient lighting that can help to commemorate an event. There's more smart grid applications that allow us to control light levels. One person may like a certain light level and another may like a different light level, and it allows us that autonomy and remote ability to control the light. The ability to do environmental sensing, vibration sensing, it's all there. What we're trying to be very mindful of is that potentially too much could be too much. What's going to be the most qualitative approach for technological applications that are going to provide the greatest benefit to the constituents in a given neighborhood? Next slide, please. To take it somewhat internally, what really intrigues us about remote monitoring and remote control of streetlights is ability to monitor energy consumption, taking our somewhat corrective maintenance culture and turning that into preventative maintenance. This potentially allows us ability to identify a problem before it's visible. If there's a fluctuation in power, we can get out there before you're experiencing a light outage and hopefully reduce the frustration for constituents in the given neighborhoods. And also, asset management. This is a big thing for us, being able to assign a tag both based on the useful life of a pole or a fixture, but also being able to potentially monitor vibration in the area and see if there's a potential structural issue that we're going to have to address. Asset management and the ability to manage assets through these applications is profound and actually ties into a lot of our inventory management applications, which in turn will improve our budget certainty and our ability to optimize our budget in future years. Next slide. Again, the possibility of providing a 24/7 power source is there. Traffic counts and traffic monitoring is another potential. And again, it's the ability to have location-specific information that can be helpful either to constituents or to basic city services. One area that I'm particularly interested in is ambient air monitoring and temperature sensing. Having worked snow fighting for the last 4 years and actually having Cummins Highway as my route last year, having the ability to identify temperatures across the city allows for more predictive management of our snow fighting forces. And so it's something that's very intriguing. And I think is in some ways a low hanging fruit, because if you can get a temperature sensing device onto these lights, it'll be a profound help to our snow fighting operations. Next slide. So questions for you. I think this is the point that I turn it over to Daniela.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Thank
Great.
you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for talking to us about street lighting, the work that you do, and sort of what we can hope to see, and the opportunities and Cummins, and also the future of what can be coming down in a few years' time. And so I have some questions for the audience. We are interested to hear about lighting issues that you're experiencing on Cummins Highway. We've heard a lot from people who are walking, for example, that they experience a lot of dark spots, especially at night. And they've given us some pointers, especially to some places where there's people waiting for the buses or anything like that. So I'm just opening the floor. If you raise your hand, we will unmute you to bring up those points. And then also one of for street lighting as well. Well, we'll start with that question and then we can move on to the next. How about that?
Daniela, there's a question in the chat to start with.
Can we put, okay. Carlene asked, can we put numbers on these new light poles so we can identify the light that is inoperable? Mike?
I'm going to try and follow that. Typically, we do it by geolocation through the 311 app. That's the most expeditious way to address a streetlight outage. We are looking at a system or citywide asset tagging initiative so that we can not only number the light, but tie it back to the control box that it ties to, or the manhole that it is connected to. So that is in the works, but in the immediate term, the 311 app is profoundly important to our operations. A lot of times we'll get information or requests that say, hey, all the lighting in this area isn't working. And we always ask respectfully that if you can just go out and take a picture of that light, it's worth 1,000 words. We're certainly happy to canvass the area. There's no problem there. But knowing the exact location and the light you're talking about will allow us a greater level of success the first time.
Thank you, Mike. Latrice, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes. While we're on the topic of street lighting, does this also fall under the same thing, which is street lights, as in like the traffic lights or blinking lights, things of that nature? Would that come under this agenda, or would that be something totally different?
So that is a different conversation, and we will be also looking into that as part of the reconstruction of Cummins Highway. But not during this conversation. Although if you have any comments about streetlights, I saw that somebody left a comment about the traffic light exiting the Burger King. We will be happy to hear those comments so that we can look into them as we analyze the streetlights the traffic lights on Cummins. Sorry, I muted myself. What I meant to say was I asked Barbara to unmute, so you can unmute now.
Okay, I just want to follow up on what Mike was talking about when numbering the poles, the light poles. I remember when the street light was out at the end of my driveway, and they said, well, what is the number? I said, I don't know. All I can do is give you my address, and that's the end of the driveway. But I think it's really important that some of those poles be numbered so it's easier, because if you take a picture, most of the street lights on my street look the same. So on Cummins Highway, it will be almost the exact same thing. And then I just wanted to know if we could get some sort of continuity of some of the decent lights that are in the community. A few years ago, there was a setup of lights put out, and there was different types of lights, but I think if there was something where we could actually vote on what types of lights cover cover Cummins Highway with a decent amount of lighting. Because we can drive through Mattapan and see different types of lights, and some of them are dark areas. So I'm just wondering if there's a way of the community being able to be a source of picking the correct lighting.
From our perspective, we would welcome that wholeheartedly. We want this to be a partnership. We certainly feel that the pendant light is the appropriate solution, but we want to hear from all stakeholders. One area is, of all the places I listed for pendant lights, and I can't believe I missed this one, is as you go down to Cummins Highway into Mattapan Square and take a right, all down River Street are all pendant lights. And it may be part of the conversation that folks don't think those are sufficient, and that's what we want to hear. So we want to have certainly a productive conversation and buy-in from the community. We don't want this to be something that the community doesn't want. Excuse me for stammering.
I will be unmuting Latrice. Latrice, you can ask your question now.
Yes, you bring up a good point, Mike. I just had like a follow-up question to that. And I know you talked about stakeholders and people in the community, but how would that process happen? Like, will there be like some type of a ballot that'll go out to individual homes, or like, will these meetings become publicized more, and, you know, there'll be like more sessions like this? Like, what's the plan for getting the community more involved in these decisions?
I mean, I'll jump in on that one. Hi, Zach Wasmuth again. I think, you know, the focus of tonight's meeting is exactly to have that conversation. You know, in general, for an arterial street like this, as Mike has alluded to, we try to go for the pendant fixture because we feel like it's an attractive fixture. It also provides the sufficient lighting. Mike listed some examples, specifically River Street, you know, that's right at the end of Cummins Highway. So, but as Mike alluded to, we want to get your feedback, particularly on, you know, any concerns that you have for lighting specific to Cummins Highway that we should look like, and how you feel about the, you know, how do you feel about the pendant fixtures in general? You know, I'm sure many of you have experienced them on River Street and everything. So if there's any particular issues, you know, this is meant to be this conversation to get some feedback from you all, so that we can help us to make the decisions for the design.
I also like to point out that this is also very early into it. So this is an introduction conversation. You can have time to think about it, and we'll probably come back to the topic of lighting a little bit later on when we have the design a little bit more fleshed out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts? Intrigued by any opportunities to incorporate additional firm lighting improvements? I see Barbara has raised her hand, so I will unmute you now.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just joining, but did you show pictures of what the lighting will look like?
I showed pictures of some examples of the type of lighting that we're working on. I can go back to show, yes. But sorry, wrong direction. So you can see here on, this is Nubian Square. And Mike, feel free to jump in anytime. This is the work that's currently happening there. And this is the pendant lighting, which has two heads, one for the road and another one for the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. And the ability to put on that pedestrian light is entirely scalable. It isn't required. You may have locations where the pendant pole is close enough that the sidewalk is illuminated. There may be other times that this is the preferable option. And that's what we like about this particular fixture family, if you will, is the ability to scale not only the design of the light, but also the illuminance and the light levels of the light. We can scale all of that to tailor it to the constituents' requests.
Barbara, did you have anything else to say? I see that your hand's still raised.
Yeah, will it be operated by solar power, the lights?
No, that is not in the design. They'll be powered underground and be fed back to a streetlight control box. That is the main operations center that will be powering the lights. Those take redundant feeds from the utility manhole and will utilize a control pole system setup where one pole will monitor the light levels during the day and then initiate the lights on as it gets darker into dusk or turn off when dawn presents itself. It's the system that's prevalent throughout the city and something we feel works pretty well.
Before we move on, Mike, could you speak a little bit as to why we prefer to have this system versus like solar power lights usually?
We've looked very closely at solar powered lighting, and it's right now at the point that we can't count on the reliability of the light. You effectively need to have a battery backup that can withstand the power requirements of the lighting for undetermined amounts of time. If the aspect of that solar panel isn't catching the light correctly, it leads to variables in low power charging and presents honestly too many issues with either low light level or no light level scenarios. We looked very closely at this for a lot of our alley lighting down in the Harrison Avenue area. And we simply can't count on the reliability of the light staying lit when we need it to be illuminated.
I will now ask Kenya to unmute.
I have a question and a comment. The question is, what is the, I guess the brightness or the watt of the bulbs in those light fixtures?
So for a given pendant light, it's 75 watts. And one of the first notes I took down was about color rendering and Kelvin ratings. I won't bore anyone who hasn't delved into that world, but effectively the color rendering has to do with probably self-explanatory, but the light color. We strive to have a warmer light as opposed to a very bright white light. I know at my own house, I went home and brought 4,000 Kelvin LED screw-ins, and I had a problem on my hands because of how bluish the light was. And my wife let me know that. So we have a great appreciation for light levels and, striking that balance of making sure there's sufficient lighting in the roadway, but not making it too cumbersome to either your overall quality of life or simply just overlighting your front yard or anything along those lines.
So with all that you said, is that more like a kind of a natural light?
Yes, sorry, that was a much better way to say it.
Okay. I'm like, you giving us like scientific, jargon and that good stuff. Like we're like,
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a much warmer light.
Awesome. And so then my comment, and I'll make it really quick. I'm advocating for anything that will allow any of us who are either biking, walking, commuting, coming home from school programming after hours, and those who are drivers to be able to adequately see where we're going. So whatever is appropriate for our streets, for our young people, especially that, come out of school and go to football practice or basketball practice and still got to take public transportation to get home. I am an advocate for adequate lighting for our young people who, and adults, of course, who are commuting, because, in Boston here, it gets dark. We're leading to that time period where it gets dark at 4:30.
Yep.
In some cases, 4 o'clock. And so there's still activity after those hours. And so, adequate lighting is absolutely necessary. So I'm advocating for that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I will ask now Marilyn to unmute.
Thank you. I posted a couple of questions in the chat, but if I missed some because I joined the meeting later, could you talk about how this lighting plan is connected to the overall redesign of Cummins Highway and the slowing of traffic? Because there are all these plans we've been looking at that include, additional trees and all kinds of changes on Cummins. So is this a coordinated effort?
I would say so. I would turn it over to Zach. Where I'm a little bit hesitant is I'm not intimately involved in the overall planning of the design. We see this as a tremendous opportunity to put in a light that we think will work very well in this area and certainly improve lighting levels. But as it interacts with tree and canopy design, that's something that would be a larger question for the engineering department.
Sure, and I'm happy to take that and to chime in. I mean, all of this is comprehensive. I don't know if you caught my slides at the beginning, but we're looking at an entire reconstruction of the street. So this includes new sidewalks, new lighting, new street trees, paving the street. All of that is all factored in. So as we take a look at reconstructing Cummins Highway, we're looking at all of those elements, and all of those are tied into one comprehensive design. So like the location of the street lights are there to provide the adequate lighting, not only for people driving on the street, but for people biking, for people walking. There'll be space so that they're not blocked by trees and that sort of thing. So, new street trees will go in, the lights will be such that they're not, as the trees grow, they're not interfering with that, and they'll be at appropriate locations to light up crosswalks and things of that nature to really make sure that the street is a lot safer for all users. So yes, it's totally a comprehensive effort. This meeting is just specifically to talk about the details and to get some feedback from you all about the lighting and what we're thinking about the lighting. But yeah, everything ties together in this roadway design.
All right, that would be my hope, okay, for the community.
Yep.
So if I can pursue a couple of follow-up questions. There was conversation about the potential that each of these streetlights had, right? So potential is different from actual use. So is there a plan already for what will be kind of the minimal features of these lights? And are there options for us to start talking about these other potential uses?
I would say the future uses are concepts only at this point. Our main goal is appropriate lighting levels that enhance the overall project design. And in terms of options and scalability, right now it's color rendering, lighting levels, and pedestrian lighting options. The sort of more smart technology applications are something that's further down the road. I tend to be very pragmatic. I don't want to leap into something that is an intriguing idea for the sake of jumping into it. I really want to vet those types of things out before a wholesale implementation on a project such as this.
And just to add to what Mike's saying and to elaborate on your question, I think the goal of this project is obviously we will install a whole new street lighting system to provide those lighting levels and everything that Mike said, but also we're designing our street lighting systems like the Ruggles Street project that was mentioned to have our lights be equipped for these future type things. So if we're adding additional wiring and stuff to our streetlights, which we'll also take a look at for this project, so that we can add things on them like sensors or cameras or whatever the latest thing is, so that they'll be equipped to take us into that. So like maybe we don't make a decision right now as to what type of sensor or something that we might attach to a streetlight, but in the future, if we'd like to, we'll be able to plug right into it. So we're trying to design for the present, but also like be cognizant of what may come in the future.
That's what I would hope, that there's a lot of forward future thinking, right?
Exactly.
As we're
Flexibility
going,
for the, yes.
It's not to try to fix past problems, which I am going to bring up now.
Sure.
So and perhaps you're going to tell me this is another project. So once you come off Cummins Highway, you enter the neighborhood, and then you see the lights, okay? I've taken pictures of some of the light posts because I cannot believe how they look. We have wooden light posts, some places that are attached to another post that's been cut halfway down, okay? Just dangling in the air, connected with metal bars, okay? Are you planning on coming into our neighborhoods to help us improve our neighborhoods? Because I just don't know. I drive around the city of Boston. I don't see any poles like that on Beacon Hill. I don't see them in other neighborhoods. It's like our job never got finished once you came to the neighborhood. So I'm wondering, is there another plan?
And those are wood utility poles, is that correct?
I guess that's what they are. Yeah, they just
Yeah.
are less.
So if you can give me that address, I can address that right away. There is a whole, and I'll try not to roll my eyes, but there's a whole sequencing that has to occur for that second pole to get removed. And sometimes the abutters on those poles don't wait for their predecessor, and you end up with poles cut like they are. I'm only attempting to explain what's happening, but I can certainly work to expedite that and without a doubt transfer any streetlights that are on the older pole. But it is something we're pushing on the pole owners, which depending on the location are either Verizon or Eversource, to expedite the transfer of all the assets to the new pole. It is an issue, certainly in the southwestern portion of the city where wood utility poles are more prevalent. It's prevalent up in Brighton, in East Boston, and parts of Dorchester. It's a constant issue that we're fighting, and I'm happy to look into that particular location if you can give me that information.
I will, if you put your email or something in the chat box.
Sure.
I can do that. Lastly, maybe you'll tell me this was again just your talk. Somewhere on the slide, I thought you said that the sensor data could help to prevent crashes. So I was like, wow, that is a powerful light pole. So just talk about that a little more, because that's what the community's been told, that we've had enormous accidents, large number of accidents out on Cummins Highway, and that we should care about all those people losing their lives, which we do. Okay.
Of course, absolutely. If I gave that impression, I would definitely want to step back from that. There's the benefit that we're providing is greater light levels, so there's improved visibility. But for it to be able to prevent crashes delves into an interaction with the end user that I don't think the street lighting is capable of.
Yep.
Our goal is to light appropriately and really make it as safe as possible. But there's nothing that I know of that will specifically prevent crashes or that we can claim.
Here it is on this slide. Our
There,
smart
yes.
is focused on using census data to prevent crashes.
Right. So
I just want to understand how it works.
Thank you for this question, Marilyn. So the one Mike is speaking of, and also, so what we've been using our current light post a lot as well has been to try some sensors with some of the other departments that are around the city. And one of the uses for these sensors has been to sort of monitor traffic and also try to collect data that we can then use to inform design that will help us prevent crashes. So we use this data a lot on our Vision Zero work and through our redesign work when we are looking at a corridor. So sometimes we install these sensors so that we can sort of continually get data, not just like at one point. And this is something that could also be an opportunity later on to have like a more continuous monitoring of that will help us make changes if necessary to our streets. Yeah. Someone had a question. And I also wanted to mention that in our previous meeting, with the air quality, the environment and the environment department, where we talked about air quality, we also talked about monitoring air quality as one of the sensors that could be possible, which I know a lot of people had interest in, especially because of the many different types of uses that happen on the corridor and the different types of how traffic bunches and stuff like that. So this is something that we're also looking into now as the project is not rebuilt yet, and then continuing to monitor that as as a continuous project to learn more about our quality and how we can improve it. And then there was a question that I wanted to bring up, which was from Roxanne. Roxanne asked how to speak a little bit about the light bulbs that these light posts could have, the street lighting could have, and she's wondering how green they are, and sort of, if you could speak to that, Mike.
Certainly. Depending on your definition of green, the LED light is the most efficient fixture that we have available. We choose a specific wattage, again, based on appropriate lighting levels and the height off of grade that these fixtures will reside. Compared to any other fixture, to me, what makes them green is the inherent nature of the LED, consuming substantially less energy. You have a 75-watt light that would normally have been a 250 watt or even 400-watt high pressure sodium light at some point in previous history. And that in and of itself is a savings, but then it's the longevity of life for the LED fixture. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, it's in many cases a 5-to-1 ratio in terms of lifetime, 100,000 hours to about 20,000 hours. And so that alone, even you could probably extend and consider the greenhouse gas emissions that go into going out and changing the light. There are savings there, and measured over time. I think that is something of consideration. So I would say the longevity of life and the lower wattage are the key components to making these fixtures green.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Danielle, I have one question. Will we be able to download all of the comments so that I can follow up on them?
Yes.
Okay.
I will
you.
download them and share them with you.
Thank you.
Yes, as mentioned, all of the comments that you provide today. So this is being recorded. We also have a note taker, and we have the chat to download, and then we go over your comments and incorporate them as we look into the design. And Mike also incorporates them into his day-to-day work. Okay, well, if nobody else has anything else at this point, I would like to briefly recap, again, the goals of the project, but also what we have been, what the next steps are going to be. So the goal of the Cummins Highway Reconstruction is a safer, more accessible Cummins Highway. We hope to transform Cummins Highway into a tree-lined neighborhood street that is safer for families to walk, wait for the bus, ride bikes, or travel by vehicle. It will connect the residents to the city's networks of open spaces and make it easier for elders to cross the streets. And this is a rendering on your right-hand side of the concept design that was presented back in 2020. So the timeline of where we've been in this reconstruction project, the first public meeting, we started engagement before this, but the first public meeting was in April 11th of 2019 at the Mattapan, which is near Cummins. In there, there was a presentation, and we sort of talked about the overall goals, and people gave their feedback of what they would like to see. And we had a second public meeting on October 9th, October 29th, 2019. And then a third one in which, so again, to make sure we gathered enough feedback and present overall some of the design concepts that have been drafted based on the comments from the first design. And then in the third public meeting, we presented those design concepts. And then as many of you have experienced, all of us are experiencing, we had a pandemic. And during that time, it was when we were starting to test some of the things that we heard from the third public meeting, like people wanted us to try the concept of one leading each direction. So we began a design trial in July of 2020. And this one went through October of 2020. As you remember, it was the one with the water barriers that were white and orange and were along the road. And then this was changed into a phase 2 of the redesign, which is what you see now on the road, which includes flex post and restriping of the streets. Sorry, I should probably drink some water. Throughout this duration of the trial, we've been collecting data, and you can find that information about the changes in speeds and the traffic volumes on our website, boston.gov/Cummins-Highway. And we sort of go over sort of showing how this design has been, this trial has shown that the speeds have been reduced, but also we talk about some of the challenges that we've experiencing and heard from you. So where we are now is that we began engagement on the final design for the Cummins Reconstruction. This began in June of this year. As we mentioned, your input during these discussions is used to inform the design of Cummins, and is also shared with other departments who we are working with. And they've also been participating in many of these meetings. So in June, we hosted a special edition of Tea Talks with Charles Brand. Tea Talks is a discussion being hosted with Mattapan Food and Fitness, along with other organizations that are local to Mattapan. And we discuss the ways the mobility of Black Americans is limited in the US through police, policy, and politics. And so there we gather some feedback about what people sort of wanted to see on these changes. And then in July, we hosted 2 virtual meetings with the Environment Department. One of those meetings was about heat resilience and the redesign on Cummins. You mentioned that you would like us to add more shade. So we are looking into trees and also shelters throughout the redesign. And then that you were concerned about the impacts of the temporary design and its impact on emergency services and traffic, which we've been continuing to monitor. And we also had a discussion about air quality, again, with the Environment Department, and how transportation policies and design influence air quality. So you were interested, as I mentioned before, in us monitoring air quality on the corridor. So we're looking currently at locations where air quality monitors can be installed before we go into the reconstruction. So we can start monitoring before and after changes. And then you were also concerned about the temporary redesign and how it is currently affecting air quality, which is why it's important that we try to deploy these as soon as possible. Last month, we met with Plan Mattapan. Some of you may be familiar with this work and how it relates to transportation and how our departments collaborate. It was a shorter meeting than some of these have been before. And you asked us to think of Cummins not just alone, but also as part of a network of looking at traffic on side streets and how the travel patterns of Cummins relate to the neighborhood. So with that in mind, we have been looking also at documenting traffic on side streets and seeing what improvements could possibly be done there. And you also wanted us to be proactive and make sure that we are working with the MBTA and trash removal trucks and school buses and snow management before this new design is implemented on Cummins Highway. So we have been connected with them again, but we've started conversations again in preparation of starting the design work with engineers. So this brings us to what's coming next. So after this conversation with Mike, we will be posting these meetings up online so that you have access to them, as well as share them with your family and friends and neighbors. Feel free to continue to send us comments. And then the next conversations are going to be focusing on health, public health, and how street design relates to the impacts that on health. And that's October 5th at 6:30. Again, this will be virtual meetings. And then we're having a meeting on green infrastructure and how the possibilities and opportunities for the Cummins Highway redesign on October 20th, again at 6:30. In the month of October, you can stop by the Mattapan Farmers Market to chat with us about the Cummins Highway redesign and sort of next steps. That's on Saturdays in October from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And as always, we've been having these for almost, I think, since the beginning of 2020, well, middle of 2020. You can book an appointment with us to chat one-on-one. Since Jeff usually is the one who takes them, but he's out on leave, you will meet maybe with Zach or maybe with me, and we can go over very specific details or things that you're very specifically interested in. And as always, we take all this back and see how we can work it into the design. And before we depart, I also wanted to share some resources and ways for you to stay engaged, not only with us, but for other people that you've met in our previous meetings and other city departments. So as I mentioned, our upcoming chats are public health on October 5th at 6:30 and green infrastructure on October 20th at 6:30 as well. You can always visit our website for the latest information and recaps and all of the video, the presentation translated. We will have the video. All of this is going to be on our project website, boston.gov/Cummins-highway. You can chat with us, book an appointment to chat with us 15 minutes, bit.ly/Cummins-15. And then you can reach out to Jeff Alexis at jeffrey.alexis@boston.gov with your comments and questions, and he always gets the appropriate person to respond to. So, right, this month of September, there are some youth-focused transportation workshops happening for people between the ages of 10 and 21. We're hoping to get more young people involved in our processes. And so there will be some final workshops where they're talking about complete streets and opportunities and interests of young people. So if you know anyone that would be interested in signing up, we will drop the link on the chat, or you can always email and connect with Chevelle for more information on these workshops. And participants will have the chance to earn a $10 gift card for your participation. If you don't know, you can now ride the Route 28 bus on Blue Hill Ave for free. It takes you to Nubian Square. So you can board at all doors without paying until November 29th. So this is a trial, and we will encourage everyone to take the bus if you already use it. It's free now. And if you don't, it might help you connect. We are almost at the end of our Park Summer Fitness series. I believe October is the end of it. So in Mattapan at Almond Park, there's family Zumba on Tuesdays from 6 to 7 if you want to join. There's also virtual, apologies. I wanted to say that there's also virtual classes available, and you can find that information on boston.gov/calendar or boston.gov/fitness. And you will be able to see all the classes available in person, but also virtual. As I've mentioned in previous meetings, the reconstruction of Workers Playground is underway. I haven't had any updates, but it started in June. And if you have any specific questions, you can ask Lauren Bryant. Her phone number is 617-961-3019. And her email is lauren.bryant@boston.gov. There's at the Mattapan branch library, a Wi-Fi outdoor zone where you can go. You can see a picture on the right of the screen. where there will be shade and seats and lighting and very good Wi-Fi for you to connect and utilize without having to enter the library. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there will be a nutritious breakfast and lunch available for pickup for youth under 18. And then on Tuesdays, there will also be office hours for the rental relief fund for the city of Boston. So you can find out more information there in person. This month is Bike Month in Massachusetts. So you can celebrate with Mattapan Food and Fitness by going to the Mattapan Farmers Market. The address is 888 Cummins Highway on Saturdays, started in September 4th, but it will go until the 25th. The last day will be giving away bike parts and helmets. And then there will also be a musical performance. And then if you miss this one, the next one will be there. There's some beginner-friendly rides led by community residents on Monday nights at 5:30. They meet at Mattapan Square T-Stop, and they ride along the Naponset River Greenway, which is one of the open spaces that we're hoping to connect with this project for people safely. And then there will be on the 26th another ride along the Naponset Trail with the Women's on Wheels team and us at BTD. And that will meet on the parking lot on Hill Street near the Pope John Paul II Park. And that meets on September 26th at 11 a.m. And then, last but not least, we are expanding our blue bikes, and you should be seeing some new blue bike stations on Hyde Park and Mattapan. There is discounted passes available for our public rideshare system. People who participate in any type of public assistance programs or otherwise have qualifying income can receive this discount. Discounted passes are $50 a year or $5 a month. And there is no commitment annually only. And unlike the regular memberships where you have 45 minutes, this ones have 1 hour rides, and they are unlimited as long as you dock and dock back out. And for more information is boston.gov/discounted-blue bikes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. If you have any, we'll have 5 minutes. We can end the meeting early, or if you have any last questions, feel free to ask. Kenya is, I will ask you to unmute now.
I'm gonna just miss this, but did you explain to folks how to save the chat?
I did not. Very good point. So you should have 3 little dots on the right-hand side of your chat, and on the top. So once you see those 3 little dots, it will be on the right-hand side of the chat screen. You can click on it, and then on the top, it should say Save Chat.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate your presence here today and the questions and comments we received. And we hope to see you again in October for our chats on green infrastructure and public health.